Chapter 1. A watch that wants to be wrong. January in New York makes honest men hurry and dishonest men take their time. The wind comes off the river like it has been hired to be rude. The sidewalks shine with old ice, and every face you pass seems to be practicing an expression for spring. At West 35th Street, the brownstone stood as it always does, stubborn, comfortable, and certain it is the proper center of the city. At 8:15 that evening, Fritz Brenner announced dinner with the solemnity of a judge. Wolfe had already endured an hour with the orchids and was in the dining room with his napkin folded as if it had been measured. I had the misfortune of being hungry, which meant I had to sit opposite him and watch him demonstrate that appetite is a moral discipline. "Archie," he said, after tasting the soup, as if it were a proposal, "you are distracted." "I was thinking about the city," I said. "It is cold, noisy, and eager to make me walk." "That is not thought," Wolfe replied. "That is complaint." I was about to defend myself when the doorbell rang. Fritz paused, ladle held aloft, and Wolfe's eyes narrowed toward the sound, as if the bell itself had committed an offense. "If that is Inspector Kramer," Wolfe said, "inform him that the calendar does not grant him privileges." I went to the front hall and opened the door. It was Inspector Kramer, which meant Wolfe had been right, and I had been optimistic. Kramer wore his usual overcoat and his usual expression, the one that says he is carrying a problem that insists on being heavy. "Goodwin," he barked. "Where's Nero?" "Eating," I said, and resenting it. Kramer stepped inside, stamping snow off his shoes. "Tell him I got a dead man and a clock trick." That was enough to interest me. Kramer does not usually mention clocks unless one has hit him on the head. I led him to the office. Wolfe was already there, having moved with the speed he pretends he does not possess when something piques him. He sat behind his desk, chair angled, eyes fixed on Kramer with the calm hostility of a man who believes interruptions should pay rent. "Inspector," Wolfe said, "you are early." "A guy's dead," Kramer snapped. "Death is not punctual," Wolfe replied. "You are." Kramer ignored that. "Simon Vale, antiques, broker, cautious, tight, no enemies that admit it, found dead in his office on 57th, no forced entry, no mess. Looks like he shut up and went home, except he didn't. Somebody put him down neat." Wolfe's lips pressed together. "Cause?" "Blunt force. One hit quiet. Medical says 8:30 to 9:15. "And you said a clock trick," Wolfe prompted. Kramer reached into his pocket and produced a small evidence envelope, holding it up as if it were a photograph. In the office, a wristwatch on his desk. Not on him, face up, centered like a bullseye, set 5 minutes fast, ticking away like it was proud of itself. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. "A watch. Assistant says it's his habit," Kramer went on. "Runs 5 minutes ahead. Always did. So if somebody saw him at 9:10 and he's dead by 9:15, you get a neat little wiggle. 5 minutes can turn a contradiction into an alibi." Wolfe's gaze stayed on the envelope. "Habit is consistent. This is theatrical." I leaned against the doorframe watching. Most murders arrive with noise. This one had arrived with a small adjustment, the kind you can miss if you are the sort of person who trusts time. Wolfe's voice was steady. "Tell me the room." Office, not his home. One main room, a back room with a safe and a closet. Door locked. Desk tidy, lights off, except the desk lamp, heat on low, like he closed for the night. "And the watch," Wolfe said, "on the desk. Centered, face up." "That's not how a man leaves his watch if he's going home," I said. "He either wears it or tosses it in a drawer. Centered means it's a sign." Kramer nodded. "That's why I called you people. The whole thing is respectable. That makes it stink." Wolfe's eyes moved to Kramer, who placed the watch. "No prints," Kramer said. "Wiped. Or gloves." Wolfe leaned back slightly. "We will not begin with the hand that struck. We begin with the hand that arranged." "You going down there or not?" Kramer demanded. Wolfe's face hardened. "I do not leave my house at night because a man has decided to die at a convenient hour. You will bring me what I require." Kramer opened his mouth, then shut it. Wolfe continued. Archie will go. Kramer looked at me. Now, I sighed. Sure, it's only January. My feet were getting lonely. Wolfe returned to Kramer. You will provide access, photographs, and all statements. Answer one question precisely. Who claims to have seen Simon Vale alive at 9:10? 2 people, Kramer said. A delivery guy says he walked past the door and saw Vale inside, standing at the desk, and Paula Merrick, the assistant. She says she spoke to him at 9:10 face to face. Wolfe's eyes held. The assistant is the witness who provides both proximity and explanation. Therefore, she is either the most useful or the most dangerous. Wolfe dismissed us with a small gesture. As we left, he called after me, Archie, time is the easiest thing to counterfeit because everyone trusts it. Find me the moment that does not belong. Outside, the cold hit like a slap from a wet glove. Kramer's car was at the curb, engine running. We drove uptown through streets that looked scrubbed with salt and bad intentions. The city at night is always alert, but in January it is alert in a tight, narrow way, as if it is conserving energy for spring. Simon Vale's office was in a building that tried to look respectable and succeeded in looking tired. The lobby had marble that had once been proud and was now resigned. A uniformed man at the desk nodded at Kramer with the bored relief of someone who believes police presence means no responsibility. On the floor, 2 uniforms guarded the door to Vale's suite. The door opened on a room that looked less like a crime scene than like an office someone had decided to put on display. The main room had a desk, 2 chairs, a glass front cabinet, with small objects arranged like museum pieces and shelves of reference books. Everything was in its place. A desk lamp cast a small circle of light on the blotter area, except the blotter was absent. The desk surface was bare wood, polished, too polished. Kramer noticed my glance. Desk blotter missing too. We looked for it. I stared at him. Now that is a taste someone shares. Kramer frowned. You mean something. I mean a blotter keeps impressions, I said. It's a cheap way to save what was written on top of it. The body was in the inner doorway, half turned toward the back room, as if Vale had been about to check his safe and changed his mind permanently. Suit neat, tie straight. Hair combed, face surprised like a man who expected caution to protect him. 1 hit, Kramer said. Back of the head. My gaze went to the desk. The wristwatch lay face up, centered at the edge of the lamp's light like a coin on a table in a cheap magic trick. The second hand moved with steady confidence. It was too steady to feel honest. It's placed, I said. Face up, centered. Kramer agreed. I looked around for other clocks. There was a wall clock above the filing cabinet and a small desk clock on a side table. Both were accurate. The watch was the only rebel. If his habit was 5 minutes ahead, why aren't the other clocks? I asked. Kramer shrugged. Assistant says only his personal watch ran ahead. That's backwards, I said. A man who loves being ahead adjusts everything, not just one thing he can lose. Footsteps sounded. A woman entered with a detective. She was in her 30s, well-dressed, eyes red but controlled, the look of a person who has practiced competence as armor. Paula Merrick. Kramer introduced me. This is Archie Goodwin, works for Wolfe. Her eyes widened slightly. Nero Wolfe. Sometimes, I said. Right now, you have me. She looked at the body, then at the watch, and her lips pressed together. Kramer said, Tell him again, Merrick. About the watch. Paula's voice was steady. Mr. Vale always kept his watch 5 minutes fast. He said it made him early for fools. And he left it on the desk, I said. Sometimes, she replied. If he was working with small pieces, he took it off so he wouldn't scratch it. That explains taking it off, I said, not centering it like a marker. Her gaze flicked to me. You think someone placed it? I think someone wants you to call it habit, I said. Her chin lifted. That's absurd. Murder is practical, I replied. Absurd is a hobby. Kramer cut in. You said you spoke to him at 9:10. Yes, Paula said. I came back because I forgot my gloves. I was leaving at 9. I realized I left them. I returned. He was in the main room. He asked me about an appointment tomorrow. I answered. I left. Was the watch on the desk then? I asked. I think so, she said. You think? I repeated. Her jaw tightened. Yes, I think so. It was his habit. When you saw him, was he wearing his watch? I asked. Her eyes widened. I did not look. That's reasonable, I said. But it also means you cannot swear it was off his wrist at 9:10. You are testifying to a general habit, not a specific moment. Paula's cheeks flushed. He did run ahead. Kramer leaned in. Delivery guy says he saw Vale inside at 9:10 too. Paula's eyes darted. Because he was alive then. Or because someone wanted him placed alive then, I said. Kramer snapped my name, and I let it go. Kramer's patience is a thin coat in winter. I walked the room slowly, looking for what did not belong. Wastebasket empty. Drawers shut. Back room door ajar. Safe shut. A file cabinet drawer pulled out 2 inches, like someone started to open it and stopped. I pointed at it. That drawer, Paula said quickly. He often left it like that. Convenient, I said. Kramer told a detective to check it. I crouched and looked under the desk. Nothing obvious, no scraps, no sign of a struggle. It was clean the way a staged room is clean. I stood. Who knew he was staying late? Paula answered. He told me he had a client appointment at 8. A private buyer. Name? I said. She hesitated. He did not tell me. In antiques, everyone has reason, I said. In murder, reasons multiply. Kramer's detective turned the watch over with gloved fingers. The back plate had a small inscription, which told me it was not cheap and not casual. It was a personal object, and personal objects make poor props, unless the person placing them believes they will control the story. Kramer said, We'll bag it and send it. Kramer's detective returned from the file cabinet with an appointment book, the kind of thin ledger cautious men keep because it can be locked in a drawer. The last page had an entry at 8 o'clock, a name written in pencil and then rubbed hard enough to leave a grey scar. Paula said, Mr. Vale kept clients confidential. That is a respectable practice, I told her. It is also convenient for murder. Either no one had touched it, or the person who did had the combination and good manners. On the desk phone, a small display showed the last outgoing call at 8:47 and the last incoming at 9:02. A dead man cannot answer a ringing phone, but a live killer can. A uniform brought in the delivery man, a young fellow with a clipboard, and the startled look of someone who has learned that time matters. He said he was there at 9:10, checked his phone at the elevator, saw Simon Vale standing by the desk with the lamp on, and decided not to interrupt. What did you bring? I asked. Registered envelope, he said. From Briarstone Auctions. Needs a signature, but people sign later. I slid it in the slot. Kramer's face tightened. We didn't find any envelope. The kid insisted he left it, and I believed him. His fear was too plain to be acting. Paula, though, had gone still, and her eyes flicked once toward the desk as if measuring what else was missing. Briarstone, I said to her. She answered too quickly. They do consignment. Then you'll tell Wolfe why a registered envelope from them vanished, I said, along with the blotter and the watch's honesty. Kramer dismissed the delivery man and muttered that Wolfe would like it. I agreed. An object with a timestamp is harder to coach than a witness. As we left, I looked back at the desk. The watch had been the showpiece. But it was not alone. A blotter removed to erase pressure marks, a registered envelope removed to erase a paper trail, and a time set 5 minutes fast to squeeze an alibi into place. A cautious man was dead, and his caution had been used against him. Do it, I said, and keep searching for the blotter. Paula's gaze flicked toward the bare wood again, toward the pale rectangle where the blotter had been. Her eyes did it on their own, without permission from her face. That was my best clue so far. I called Wolfe from the hall. Office is staged neat. Watch centered face up, set 5 minutes fast. Other clocks are accurate. Assistant claims habit, but cannot swear he wore it at 9:10. And the desk blotter is missing. Wolfe's voice came back calm and hard. Bring Paula Merrick to the brownstone tomorrow morning. Obtain the identity of the private buyer. And Archie, do not permit the police to bury the watch under habit. It is intention. He hung up. As we left, Kramer muttered, You got your boss's teeth in this. I got his appetite, I said. Teeth come later. The city slid past, dark and stubborn. Wolfe's brownstone waited downtown with its quiet order and its meals that arrive on time because Fritz insists on it. Somewhere uptown, a cautious man lay dead in a tidy office, and a watch had tried to move the truth by 5 minutes. Wolfe was right. Time is easy to counterfeit because everyone trusts it. Now we had to find the one person who did not. Chapter 2. The alibi built from minutes the next morning. The brownstone felt warmer than it had any right to, considering the wind outside was still behaving like a paid thug. Fritz had the radiators doing their steady work, and the smell of coffee and toast drifted through the hall like a promise that life could be civilized if you stayed indoors and avoided other people's crimes. Wolfe was already at the breakfast table when I came down. He had the newspaper folded, as if it had offended him personally, and he was eating with the calm authority of a man who believes digestion should be orderly. He looked at me as I sat, and his eyes held the expression that says he has been thinking while I have been sleeping. You will not be distracted today, he said. I will be cold today, I told him. Distraction is optional. Cold is compulsory. Fritz placed eggs before Wolfe with the same care a jeweler uses for diamonds. Wolfe thanked him without smiling, which is Wolfe's way of admitting dependence. Fritz placed my plate down and gave me a glance that suggested I should eat now, because later I would forget. Wolfe said, Inspector Kramer called at 7:30. He is impatient. That is not news, I said. He is also now convinced that the watch is not merely a watch, Wolfe continued. He is correct, but he does not know why. I chewed, swallowed, and said, I went through the office last night. No blotter, watch centered. Other clocks accurate. Phone showed activity after the medical window. Paula Merrick insists habit. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Habit is a refuge for lazy minds. We will not use it. He lifted his coffee cup, sipped, set it down precisely. You will build me a map of time, not of events of time. That sounds philosophical, I said. It is arithmetic, Wolfe replied. The events are meaningless until we decide which clock governs them. Every witness borrowed time from somewhere. A watch, a lobby clock, an elevator stamp, a phone log determine whose time is being used. The murderer exploited trust. We will exploit contradiction. I nodded slowly. Wolfe's mind always went to structure first, and I had learned that structure is where a man hides his lies because he assumes no one will bother to look. Wolfe continued, You will interview the last people who saw Simon Vale. The courier, a neighboring tenant, Paula Merrick, and you will obtain the objective records. Telephone logs, elevator logs. I'll get them, I said. But you know how it goes. People guard records like they are family. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. If records are guarded, it is because they have value. Use Kramer if necessary. You always say that like he is a crowbar, I said. Wolfe's voice stayed even. He is. I finished breakfast quickly because winter does not reward lingering, then put on my coat and went out. The street looked clean and hard, like the city had been polished with ice. My breath showed, cars moved cautiously. People walked fast with shoulders up, as if they were all trying to avoid being chosen for a crime. Simon Vale's building was less impressive in daylight. At night it looked discreet, which is a polite word for secretive. In morning light, it looked like an old suit that had been brushed too often. The lobby man nodded at me as if I were now part of the building's routine, which is how routines become dangerous. Kramer was already upstairs, and he met me outside Vale's office with a detective and a look that was close to satisfaction. We got the phone records, he said, and your friend Paula is already starting to sweat. That's a strong image, I said. It's winter, Kramer snapped. Nobody sweats unless they're guilty or they're running. The detective handed me a photocopy. The phone record showed outgoing calls at 8:47. Nothing after. No call at 8:58. No call at 9:02. Nothing. I tapped the page. This undermines Paula's claim. Kramer grunted. Undermines is a polite word. It kills it. Not yet, I said. People will always claim phone records are wrong until they realize the records are paid for. Kramer scowled. You want to talk to her again? Go ahead. Just don't let her play you. She can't, I said. I'm already owned. Kramer did not laugh, which was fine. I had not expected it. I started with the courier because couriers live by time and get nervous when it becomes unreliable. He was in his 20s, with the anxious eyes of a man whose job is to bring objects to people who want them immediately. He had been brought back to the building by the police and looked as if he resented being involved in anything more complicated than a signature. Name, I said. Danny Fitch, he replied, gripping his clipboard like it might protect him. Tell me about last night, I said. He nodded fast. I had a registered package, Briarstone Auctions. I was on the floor at 9. I know because I checked my watch at the elevator. I knocked. He opened. He signed. You checked your watch, I said. Yes, not a wall clock, I said. No, he replied. I use my watch. Is your watch accurate? I asked. He blinked. It's a watch. That is not an answer, I said. He frowned, then said, It's accurate. I set it. When? I asked. Last week, he said. To my phone. To your phone. I repeated, You trust your phone. Everybody trusts their phone, he said, offended. Sometimes that's a mistake, I said. What time did he sign exactly? He swallowed. 9:05. I nodded. You're sure? Yes, he insisted. 9:05. I remember because I was late to the next stop and I cursed the building's elevator. Did you see his wristwatch? I asked. He hesitated. Number he was in the doorway, he just signed. Did he look like a man closing up? I asked. He looked normal. The courier said, tired, not scared. Did you go inside? I asked. No, he said quickly. He stayed near the desk, I stayed at the door. That's important, I said. You did not enter the room. Numbered, did you hear anyone else? I asked. He shook his head. Number, I nodded, then turned away. The courier's statement was strong in one way and weak in another. Strong because he was convinced, weak because his conviction rested on his watch, not on anything shared or official. Next I spoke to the neighboring tenant. Kramer had found him because he had been on the floor late, which is always suspicious until you remember some people work. The tenant was a middle-aged man with a careful haircut and the wary look of someone who has never enjoyed talking to police. He introduced himself as Leonard Sykes, a lawyer who rented an office 2 doors down. He spoke in precise sentences, as if he had practiced being careful. I heard a heavy door close at approximately 9:12, he said. Approximately, I repeated. Yes, he said. I was in my office. I had been on the phone. I looked at the wall clock as I ended the call. Wall clock, I said. Yes, he replied. The building's corridor clock. It is visible from my doorway. And you heard a door close, I said. He nodded. Not a slam, a firm closure, like a backroom door, something heavy. Did you hear voices? I asked. Number footsteps, I asked. Number. Nothing else, I said. Nothing, he confirmed, which is why I remember it. The building was quiet. You didn't investigate, I said. His eyes tightened. I am an attorney. I do not investigate noises in hallways at night. That's fair, I said. Was the corridor clock accurate? He blinked. I assume so. Do you ever check it? I asked. No, he said. I am not obsessed with time. I nodded, but you are comfortable using it when it matters. He bristled slightly. It was a reference. Everything is a reference, I said. That's the trouble. I wrote it down and moved on. The tenant's time came from a corridor clock, which might be accurate and might not. But his detail about the heavy door was good, because a heavy door closing at 9:12 suggested movement inside the suite at that time. Then I saw Paula Merrick. She was in the small waiting area, outside Vale's office, sitting stiffly, coat still on, gloved hands clasped. The detective with her looked bored, which meant she had not confessed yet. When she saw me, her expression tightened into defensive competence. "Mr. Goodwin," she said. "Miss Merrick," I replied. "We need to talk again." "I told the police everything," she said. "It's only ever the version you chose first." Her cheeks flushed. "I'm cooperating." "Then cooperate better," I said. We went into an empty office down the hall because Kramer's men had taken over Vale's space and made it smell like official business. Paula sat. I stayed standing because it kept my mind sharper and made her feel slightly less comfortable. Wolfe calls comfort a tool, and he is right. The killer had used comfort last night. I intended to deny it today. "You told Kramer Simon Vale called you at 8:58, I said. "Yes," she replied. "He did. Phone records show he made no calls after 8:47, I said, watching her face. Her eyes widened. For a moment the competence wavered, then returned like a curtain pulled back into place. "Then the record is wrong," she said. "That's your first choice," I said. "Blame the record." "It happens," she insisted. "Systems fail." "Systems fail," I repeated. "Then why do they always fail in the exact direction that benefits the liar?" Her jaw tightened. "I am not lying." "Then you misremembered," I said. "But you were precise. You gave 8:58, not around 9. That is what Wolfe calls theatrical." Paula bristled. "Simon was exact. We were exact." "Exact people check their claims," I said. "Let's try again. What happened at 8:58? She hesitated. "I was leaving." "Where were you?" I asked. "In the lobby," she said. "By the door." "Then why would he call you?" I asked. "If you were still in the building." She blinked. "I don't know. Maybe he wanted to confirm something." "Confirm what?" I asked. She swallowed. "An appointment." I leaned in slightly. "You are building a story. You are not remembering." Her hands tightened. She looked away. "I did speak to him, face to face," I said. "Yes," she replied quickly. "I went back to his office because I forgot my gloves." "And you left the building at 9:02, I said. "Yes." "Do you have proof?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "What proof?" "Do you have a badge?" I asked. "No," she said. "It's an office suite. We use keys." "Then you have no objective stamp for leaving at 9:02, I said. She swallowed. I looked at the lobby clock. "Which lobby clock?" I asked. "The one behind the desk," she said. "Is it accurate?" I asked. "It's a clock," she snapped. I nodded. "Now you sound like the courier." Paula's mouth tightened. "What do you want from me?" "I want to know whose time you used," I said. "Because time is the only thing you have offered confidently, and time is the only thing that appears to be manipulated." She leaned forward. "Simon always ran 5 minutes fast. He said it kept him ahead. Yet his wall clocks were accurate," I said. Heated color rose in her cheeks. "He didn't care about wall clocks." "Then why did he care about being ahead?" I asked. "A man who cares about being ahead cares about it everywhere." She stared at me. "You're twisting." "No," I said. "I'm measuring." I changed approach because sometimes you do not break a lie by attacking it. You break it by walking around it. "You said you left at 9:02, I said. "Where did you go?" "Home," she replied. "How?" I asked. "Subway," she said. "Which station?" I asked. She named one. "Then you would have entered around 9:10, I said. "Because the walk from here is 8 minutes in winter if you don't slip." Her eyes widened slightly, then narrowed. I don't know. Maybe I walked fast. I nodded. Maybe, or maybe your times are not your own. Paula's lips pressed together. Her eyes flicked once to the corridor, as if checking who might hear. I softened my voice a little. Paula, the watch was set 5 minutes fast and placed to be seen. That suggests someone wanted witnesses to slide their times forward. That turns 9 o'clock into 9:05. It turns 9:10 into 9:15. It turns contradictions into comfort. Her face tightened. Why would anyone do that? To create an alibi, I said. Or to break one. I watched her hands again. The fingers were clean, nails neat, but the knuckles were tense. She was holding on. Tell me about the package, I said. Her eyes narrowed. What package? The registered package from Briarstone Auctions, I said. Courier. Says Simon signed at 9:05. Paula's posture stiffened. I didn't see any package. That's interesting, I said. Because it would be in the suite if he signed. She swallowed. Maybe it was stolen. By whom? I asked. A ghost with good manners. Her eyes flashed. Why are you focusing on packages? Because packages are paper, I said. And paper is what your boss says people kill for. She stared at me, then said, Simon had an 8 o'clock appointment. A private buyer. Name, I said. She hesitated. I leaned in. Name, I don't know. She said. That's another lie, I said calmly. If you manage an antiques broker, you know his buyers. I don't, she insisted. Sometimes he kept them private. Sometimes, I said, but you are not sometimes. You are here now. Paula's eyes filled slightly, then hardened. I'm done. She stood. Sit, I said. She hesitated, then sat again. That was a small victory. I'm going to tell you what we have, I said. Phone records show Simon made no calls after 8:47. Elevator log shows a trip to his floor at 8:54. Then again at 9:11. A tenant heard a heavy door close at 9:12. The courier claims a signature at 9:05, but checked his own watch. Your times are all over the place, but they all float around the 5-minute difference. Paula swallowed. So what? So someone wanted the 5 minutes to matter, I said. And someone wanted you to repeat that Simon ran ahead by habit. She stared at me, breathing shallow. I left her with the detective and went to the building manager for the elevator log, because Wolfe had made it clear the map of time comes before the map of events. The building manager was a man who wore a tie, like it was a requirement he resented. He opened his office door with the guarded expression of someone who expects trouble. I already gave logs to police, he said. I want to understand them, I said. He handed me a printout. It showed elevator trips by time and floor. I read it carefully. 8:54. Elevator to Simon Vale's floor. 9:11. Elevator to Simon Vale's floor, the manager said. That elevator can be called from the lobby or from the corridor. Does it show who called it? I asked. No, he said. Only usage, so it is anonymous time, I said. He frowned. It's a log. A log without a logger, I said. That's convenient. I asked about the corridor clock and the lobby clock. The manager shrugged and said they were set by maintenance and checked weekly. Weekly, I said, so they can drift. They don't drift much, he insisted. I nodded. Sometimes much is not required. By the time I got back to Kramer, he had grown more irritated, which in him is an achievement. You got what you needed, he demanded. I got what Wolfe needs, I said. Not the same thing, Kramer growled. Spit it out, I told him. Phone records undermine Paula's 8:58 call claim. Elevator usage to Vale's floor at 8:54 and 9:11. Tenant hears heavy door close at about 9:12 by corridor clock. Courier claims signature at 9:05, but used his own watch. Kramer's eyes narrowed. So which time is real? That's what Wolfe wants, I said. Whose time everyone is using? Kramer snorted. People use whatever's closest. And the killer counted on that, I said. Kramer stared at me a moment, then said, You think the watch was planted? Yes, I said. It was set 5 minutes fast and placed to be noticed. If witnesses borrow time from it, they shift their statements. A man seen at 9:10 becomes 9:15. A signature at 9:05 becomes 9 o'clock. Then the medical window can be stretched, and an alibi can slide into place. Kramer's jaw tightened. You're saying the killer moved the clock around the killing? I'm saying the killer moved people's minds around it, I replied. Kramer grunted. That's Wolfe's kind of murder. It is, I said. Neat and smug. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was in the office, the curtains drawn against the glare of winter light. The room warmed by the radiators and Wolfe's own irritation. Fritz had placed a tray of beer and sandwiches nearby, and Wolfe had ignored it, the way a king ignores a servant until he is ready. I gave Wolfe the report in the order he likes, which is to say, with the time sources attached. The courier says Simon signed for a package at 9:05, I said. He checked his own watch, set last week, to his phone. Paula Merrick claims Simon called her at 8:58, but phone records show Simon made no calls after 8:47. She claims she left the building at 9:02 by lobby clock, but there is no objective stamp for her departure. A tenant heard a heavy door close at approximately 9:12 and checked the corridor clock. Elevator log shows a trip to Simon's floor at 8:54, then again at 9:11. Wolfe's eyes narrowed, pleased in the grim way he gets when the structure appears. So, Wolfe said, the witness who claims a call at 8:58 is contradicted by telephone records that indicates either error or deceit, I said. Her precision suggests deceit. Wolfe nodded once. And the courier's time source is personal and portable. A watch can be influenced by proximity, by suggestion, by habit. Yes, I said. And the watch in the office was set 5 minutes fast and centered. Wolfe's voice was quiet. The murderer planted the watch to slide witness time forward. Exactly, I said. Make 9:05 really 9 o'clock. Wolfe leaned back slightly, fingertips together. 5 minutes can turn a contradiction into an alibi. I nodded. Or into confusion. Wolfe's eyes held mine. Confusion is a form of protection. It shields the guilty by exhausting the diligent. He paused, then said, Now, Archie, consider this. The elevator log shows a trip at 8:54, and at 9:11 the tenant hears a heavy door close at 9:12. Therefore, a person arrived at 9:11 and likely exited a room at 9:12. That suggests movement after the time Paula claims she left. So Paula's departure time may be false, I said. Wolfe nodded. Or the corridor clock is wrong, or the tenant's memory is wrong. But our task is not to accuse memory. Our task is to identify the one-time source that cannot be argued with. Phone records, I said. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Correct. And phone records say Simon made no calls after 8:47. Therefore, the 8:58 call is a lie. Or someone else used his phone before 8:47, I offered. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Possible, but less likely. A liar who offers a precise time that contradicts a record is either ignorant or desperate. Paula Merrick is not ignorant, therefore she is desperate. I shifted in my chair. So the murderer is Paula. Wolfe's gaze hardened. Do not be simple. Paula is a candidate, but the watch was placed on the desk. If Paula is complicit, she either placed it or allowed it to be placed. The person who placed it wanted it noticed, wanted it trusted, wanted it borrowed. He leaned forward slightly. Archie, the murderer did not merely kill Simon Vale. He counterfeited time. Outside, the city kept moving, trusting its clocks, trusting its phones, trusting its routines. Inside Wolfe's office, we had begun to treat every minute as evidence, which is what it becomes when someone tries to use it as a weapon. Chapter 3. A habit that isn't Simon's, if there is anything New York loves more than a good story. It is a story that lets everyone feel clever without doing any work. The moment Paula Merrick said, with that competent little lift of her chin, that Simon Vale always ran 5 minutes ahead, she handed the building a story it could carry around like a hot cup. People like explanations that sound human. Habit is human. Habit is harmless. Habit makes a murder feel less like murder, and more like an unfortunate accident with paperwork. Wolfe, naturally, hated it on sight. He was in the office when I came down from the street that afternoon, shaking snow out of my coat and irritation out of my ears. Fritz had laid a late lunch on the side table, something sensible that Wolfe would pretend was unnecessary, and then consume as if he were rescuing it. The brownstone was warm in that particular way it has, as if it has never heard of weather, and intends to remain ignorant. Wolfe did not look up from his chair when I entered. He was reading, though I could tell by the set of his shoulders that he was thinking more than reading. "You have returned," he said. "I have," I replied. "My toes are furious, but they are alive." "Their port," Wolfe said. I sat and gave him what I had so far, but Wolfe lifted a hand. "No," he said, "not yet. First answer this. Is Simon Vale the kind of man who cultivates a habit of incorrect time?" "That's what I'm going to find out," I said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "You will find out quickly if the habit is false. It is not merely false. It is an assignment. Someone is giving the dead man a personality he did not possess. That is Wolfe in a sentence." I nodded, took my notebook, and went right back out, because if the watch was the center of the room, then Simon Vale's temperament was the center of the watch. I started with people who knew him when he was not selling them something, in the antiques business. That narrows the field. Everyone is either a customer, a competitor, or a man who wants to be both. Still, a cautious broker like Simon has contacts. Kramer had already taken a list from Paula of friends and colleagues, which is always the kind of list a person gives when she wants the wrong people questioned first. The first name was Edwin Halpern, an older dealer on East 60th, the kind who sells furniture that looks like it should come with a biography. His shop smelled of wax and old wood, and he greeted me with the wary politeness of a man who believes every visitor might be an inspector. "Archie Goodwin," I said, offering my hand. "Nero Wolfe's office." His eyes widened slightly. Then he took my hand and squeezed it like he was testing if I was real. "Wolfe, yes, I have heard." "Then you will hear again," I said. "I need to ask about Simon Vale." His face tightened, and he motioned me to a chair that looked like it had once belonged to a judge. He sat opposite, hands folded, expression careful. "Simon was careful," Halpern said before I spoke. "Careful, quiet, always watching the angle." "I'm not asking about angles," I said. "I'm asking about time. Did Simon Vale keep his watch 5 minutes fast as a habit?" Halpern blinked, then frowned, as if I had asked whether Simon wore a wig. "Fast," he repeated. "Number that is absurd." "Absurd in what way?" I asked. "In the way that Simon would have hated it," Halpern said, voice growing sharper. "Simon corrected timepieces obsessively. If a wall clock in a restaurant was wrong, he would notice and complain. If a jeweler's clock was slow, he would stare at it until it apologized. That got my attention. So he was not casual." "Casual," Halpern snorted. "Simon was the opposite of casual. He was meticulous. He would set his watch to the second with the radio, and he would make you listen while he did it." I wrote that down. "Did he ever say he liked being ahead?" Halpern stared at me. "Being ahead is a fool's trick. Simon liked being correct." That sounded like Simon Vale was the kind of man who would have made an excellent corpse for a murderer with a taste for irony. I thanked Halpern and left, because there was no point lingering among furniture when I had a personality trait to dismantle. Next, I spoke to a client who had known Simon for years, a woman named Rena Lalande, who collected small objects the way other people collect grudges. She met me in a cafe that was warm enough to soften my anger, but not warm enough to make me forgive January. She wore a thick coat and expensive gloves, and she looked at me as if she had decided I was either an inconvenience or entertainment. "Mr. Goodwin," she said, "I do not enjoy police matters." "You don't need to enjoy it," I replied. "You only need to answer a question." Her eyes narrowed. "One question." "Start with one," I said. "Did Simon Vale have a habit of setting his watch 5 minutes fast?" She laughed once, sharp. "Simon would have been offended by that suggestion." "Offended?" I said. He corrected me once, because I said around 3 instead of 3 o'clock, she replied. He said around is what people say when they want to be vague, and vagueness is how you lose money. I smiled. That sounds like him. She leaned forward slightly. Why are you asking? Because someone says it was his habit, I said, and someone placed a watch set 5 minutes fast where it would be noticed. Her face tightened. Then someone is lying. Exactly, I said, and I need to know whose lie it is. She glanced away. Simon was careful. He did not let assistants make decisions. He checked everything. He would not request an incorrect setting. Did he ever have his watch serviced recently? I asked. She shook her head. I do not know, but he would have used a reputable jeweler. Do you know which? I asked. She gave me a name without hesitation. Jewelers on Lexington. He trusted them. I thanked her. 2 people, different types. Same story. Simon Vale liked being correct. The alleged habit was not his, which meant it belonged to someone else, and that someone had been confident enough to assign it to him and expect it to stick. I went to Jeller's next. The shop was small, bright, and smelled faintly of metal and polish. Behind the counter, a man with a magnifier perched on his head looked up as I entered. He had the cautious eyes of a person who handles things that cost more than cars. I introduced myself and said I needed to see their records for Simon Vale. He frowned. We have privacy policies. So does the city, I told him. It still has homicide. That loosened him. He asked for identification, then asked for Simon's full name, then went into a back room and returned with a receipt book. He flipped pages with careful fingers and stopped. Yes, he said. Simon Vale, battery replacement. Date? I asked. January 3rd, he said. That was interesting. January 3rd was only days before the murder, and men like Simon do not change batteries casually. They do it because they cannot tolerate their watch stopping in the middle of a thought. The jeweler held the receipt toward me. It was carbon copy paper, and the writing was crisp. There it was, in plain black ink, set plus 5 minutes per request. I felt a small, cold satisfaction. It is always gratifying when a fact sits there like a brick. Who made that request? I asked. The jeweler hesitated. The person who brought the watch. Was it Simon? I asked. The jeweler frowned. It was a woman. A woman, I repeated, already knowing the likely answer. Yes, he said, a woman in a grey coat. She said she was from Mr. Vale's office. Did she name herself? I asked. He shook his head. Number, but she knew the watch. She knew the inscription. She said he wanted it set 5 minutes ahead. I leaned in. Did you speak to Simon about it? The jeweler looked uncomfortable. Number, we do not call clients for battery replacements. We do what is requested. And you wrote it down, I said, tapping the receipt. Yes, he said, defensive. We note requests. Good, I said. Your note may solve a murder. He looked startled, then uneasy. Is this serious? Dead men are serious, I said. I asked him to describe the woman as precisely as he could. He did, in the cautious way that people describe customers when they know their words might matter. Grey coat, dark hair pulled back, professional voice, no jewelry except small earrings. He did not mention her face with certainty, which meant she was either ordinary or careful. Either way, Paula Merrick wore professional competence the way other women wore perfume. I did not need a portrait to have a direction. I left with the copy of the receipt and called Kramer from the street because he enjoys being told he is wrong almost as much as Wolfe does. Kramer, I said, the assistant's habit story is junk. Kramer grunted. You got proof. I got a jeweler's receipt dated January 3rd. I said, battery replacement. Note says set plus 5 minutes per request. The request was made by a woman from Vale's office. There was a pause on the line. Then Kramer's voice came back sharper. That's Merrick. Likely, I said. Also, friends say Simon hated incorrect timepieces, corrected them obsessively. So the 5-minute fast setting isn't his habit. It's someone's staging. Kramer swore softly. Send me the receipt. I'll bring it to Wolfe first. I said. Your boss, Kramer muttered. All right. But I want a copy. You'll get it, I said, and hung up before he could complain further. Back at the brownstone, Wolfe was in his office with the curtains half drawn, the room quiet except for the steady sound of his breathing and the faint distant clink of Fritz in the kitchen. Winter light slid in through the glass, pale and hard. Wolfe looked up as I entered. You have it. I have it, I said, and handed him the receipt. Wolfe read it once, then again slower. His eyes narrowed, and the corners of his mouth tightened in the kind of satisfaction that is not joy but confirmation. Set plus 5 minutes per request, he said quietly. And the request wasn't Simon's style, I said. People who knew him say he hated incorrect timepieces, corrected them obsessively. One said he set his watch to the second with the radio. Wolfe nodded once. Then the habit is not Simon's, it is assigned. He lifted his gaze to me. Who brought it? Jeweler says a woman in a grey coat from Vale's office, I said. He didn't name her, but you can guess. Wolfe's voice was calm. Paula Merrick. Likely, I said. Also, the courier's time is suspect. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Explain. The courier says Simon signed at 9:05, I said. But I checked with his company. The delivery was scheduled for 9 o'clock, not 9:05. His memory may already be contaminated by the fast watch. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. Where did you obtain that? I told him I had called the courier's dispatcher and obtained the route schedule, which showed the registered delivery marked at 9 o'clock on the internal plan. The dispatcher had been irritated, which meant he had not rehearsed. Wolfe sat back slightly. So the watch did its work. Exactly, I said. 5 minutes is not error, it's architecture. Wolfe's eyes held mine, and then he spoke the same words back to me as if testing their weight. 5 minutes is not error, he said. It is architecture. He paused. The murderer designed a small structure in which witnesses could live. A courier checks his watch. A tenant checks a corridor clock. An assistant refers to a habit. All are anchored by an object placed to be noticed first. I nodded, and the object was altered days before the murder. Wolfe's voice remained steady. Therefore the killer did not act impulsively. He prepared the prop. He prepared the story. He prepared the witnesses, or at least prepared the environment in which their memories would be shaped. I said. Kramer's lab says the watch was wiped clean, glove use. Wolfe nodded once. Yes, a careful murderer with an interest in appearing careful. Simon was careful too, I said. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Careful men are often killed by those who believe carefulness is a mask. Simon Vale's carefulness was real. The murderer's carefulness is theatrical. That distinction is important. I sat forward. So Paula did this. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Do not insist on simplicity. Paula Merrick arranged the watch. That is likely. But arranging a watch does not necessarily mean striking ahead. It means participation. It means involvement. It means knowledge. We need motive, and we need the missing objects, the desk blotter, and the Briarstone envelope. The courier company says the package was registered, I said. If there was a signature, there is a record. If it vanished, someone took it. Wolfe nodded. And if it vanished, it contained something more valuable than paper. What would a registered envelope from Briarstone contain? I asked. Wolfe's gaze sharpened slightly. A consignment agreement, a valuation proof of ownership, or proof that ownership is disputed. I nodded slowly. Antiques are full of disputed ownership. Wolfe's voice was calm. And disputes create motive. If Simon Vale intended to reveal a fraud, or if he intended to reclaim an object, someone could have chosen murder as an efficient settlement. He picked up the receipt again and read the line as if it were a confession. Set plus 5 minutes per request. Then Wolfe said, Archie, you will now do 2 things. First, determine why Paula Merrick arranged this. Second, determine who could have benefited from the timing structure. The person who benefits may not be the person who moved the hands. That was Wolfe's way of telling me the case had become interesting. The phone rang. I answered. Kramer. You got something, he demanded. I did, I said, and it will make your day worse. I doubt it, he grunted. I told him. The receipt, the friend's statements, the scheduled delivery time. There was a brief silence. Then Kramer swore, loud enough that I pictured him glaring at his own desk. So Merrick set up the watch, he said. Summonen did, I replied. The jeweler says a woman brought it, likely her. I'll bring her in, Kramer said. Careful, I said. If she arranged the watch, she may also have arranged the story. Don't give her a chance to build a new one while you're yelling. Kramer snorted. You giving me advice now? I'm keeping you from stepping on Wolfe's toes, I said. He bites. Kramer hung up. Wolfe had heard enough from my side of the call to know Kramer was angry. Wolfe looked content, which is always unsettling. He said, now the habit collapses. Yes, I said. It isn't Simon's. Wolfe's voice remained even. Good. When a lie collapses, it reveals the scaffolding that held it. The scaffolding is motive, access, and planning. I stood. Where do you want me next? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Briarstone auctions. We must know what was delivered at 9 o'clock. The missing envelope is no longer a detail. It is the purpose. I nodded. And Paula Merrick. Wolfe's mouth tightened. She will come here, either willingly or escorted. I prefer willingly, but preference is rarely obeyed in homicide. I put on my coat again, because January never stops asking for more walking. Before I reached the door, Wolfe added, almost casually, Archie. I turned. Do not forget, Wolfe said, that the watch was altered on January 3rd. Whoever ordered that alteration anticipated the need for it. That anticipation may lead us directly to the person who arranged the killing. Outside, the city's clocks continued their honest ticking, ignorant of how easily they could be counterfeited. Inside my head, 5 minutes had become a blueprint. Chapter 4. The package that matters when a man is murdered in a room that looks as if it has been combed, brushed, and politely dismissed for the night. You can stop asking what the killer did and start asking what the killer took. Violence is noisy. Theft is silent. A clever murderer prefers silence, and then adds one neat blow as a punctuation mark. Wolfe had sent me to Briarstone auctions before he finished his morning beer, which is his way of announcing that he has chosen the direction of the case and expects the universe to cooperate. Fritz had looked at me with sympathy when I took my coat from the rack, as if my coat were a sentence, and he had just heard the verdict. You will be careful, Mr. Goodwin, Fritz said. I always am, I told him. It just never helps. Outside, January had no interest in humor. The wind cut around corners. The sidewalks were a patchwork of salt and old ice, and the city moved with the tense discipline of people who have decided that spring is a rumor told by optimists. I took a cab uptown and watched the streets slide by, thinking about 5 minutes and how cheaply a man can buy confusion if he pays with confidence. Briarstone auctions occupied a suite that announced money by refusing to appear eager. The lobby was quiet, the carpeting was thick, the receptionist was dressed in a way that suggested her job was to keep the world out. She looked at me as if I were a smudge on glass. I'm here to see someone about a registered delivery to Simon Vale, I said. Her expression did not change, but her eyes sharpened slightly at the name. Do you have an appointment? She asked. No, I said, but I have a homicide. That is a phrase that opens doors faster than charm. She picked up a phone, murmured, listened, then motioned me down a hall. A man met me in a conference room that smelled of polished wood and cautious secrets. He introduced himself as Damien Cross. Client Relations, which is the sort of title that means he handles problems quietly before they become public. Cross was in his 40s, neat hair, neat suit, neat face, and the neatness had the stiff look of practice. He offered a hand as if it were an agreement. Mr. Goodwin, he said, we heard about Mr. Vale. It is unfortunate. It's also inconvenient, I replied, taking the seat opposite him. I want to know what you sent him last night. Cross's lips tightened slightly. We sent paperwork. Paperwork is a word, I said. I want the papers. He kept his expression calm. We do not disclose client communications. Simon Vale is dead, I said. That changes the arrangement. It does not change our policies, Cross replied. I nodded. Then your policies may soon be examined by Inspector Kramer, and he is not sentimental about policies. Cross's eyes narrowed. Is this a threat? It's a forecast, I said. Now, Briarstone sent a registered package to Vale. That package is missing. The signature proof still exists in the courier's handheld. I'm here to find out why your firm sent anything registered to a man you supposedly dislike. Cross's jaw worked slightly. We do not dislike Mr. Vale. That's touching, I said, because I hear he embarrassed you recently by exposing a fake. The neatness cracked for half a second. His eyes flicked away and back. Auctions are competitive, he said. People don't register competition, I replied. They register evidence. Cross leaned back. We sent routine documentation. Routine documentation does not cause a murder, I said. So either you are lying or your routine is criminal. His smile was thin. You enjoy provocation. I enjoy answers, I said. Tell me what was in the package. Cross hesitated. It was related to a prior transaction. A refund, I said, his eyes sharpened. Who told you that? I haven't told you anything, I replied. I asked. You reacted. Cross's hands clasped. His knuckles looked slightly pale, and that told me the calm was being held up by effort. He said, Mr. Vale raised allegations about a consignment item. Fake, I said. Cross's mouth tightened. Questioned. Exposed. I corrected. Cross exhaled slowly. We were addressing it. Addressing it with a registered package, I said. That means you wanted proof that he received it. We wanted confirmation, Cross said carefully. Of what? I asked. Cross hesitated again, then said, of a report, authenticity report, I said, and watched his face. That did it. His eyes narrowed, and the neatness stiffened. I will not discuss documents, he said. I nodded. You just did. You refused to name them, but you named them. Cross stood slightly, then sat again, as if he had moved out of habit and realized motion was dangerous. Mr. Goodwin, he said, Briarstone Auctions did not kill Mr. Vale. I didn't say you did, I replied. I said you sent something that someone killed for. He stared. That is speculation. It's deduction, I said. There is a difference, he said. We sent paperwork. We regret his death. That is all. I leaned forward. Damien, if the package contained an authenticity report and refund documentation, it could expose Briarstone to financial liability, or it could expose someone's fraud. Simon Vale embarrassed your firm by exposing a fake. A firm that lives on trust does not enjoy public humiliation. Cross's eyes hardened. Our reputation matters, enough to kill, I said softly. His voice was quiet. I watched him a moment, then stood. All right. Then you will not mind if Inspector Kramer asks you the same questions. Cross's jaw tightened. We will cooperate with the police. Good, I said. Then cooperate now. Who wrote the authenticity report? He hesitated, then said, We employ independent appraisers. Name, I said. He shook his head. I cannot. You can, I said. You choose not to. Cross stood, signaling the end. That is all I can offer. I left because I had what I needed. He had confirmed the important part by resisting it. Paperwork, report, reputation, refund. Those are not romantic words, but they are words that move money, and money moves men. On the way back downtown, I called the courier company to confirm something Wolfe had asked me to pursue. The signature sheet was still in their handheld device. That mattered because a missing package can be denied, but a digital record is a stubborn little animal. The dispatcher, irritated and defensive, confirmed the delivery had been scheduled for 9 o'clock. The courier had marked it at 9:05 after the fact. The signature capture showed a name and a squiggle, But the timestamp could be influenced by when the courier completed his entry, not when the door opened. It was a perfect place for 5 minutes to hide. I met Kramer back at Vale's building in late afternoon. Kramer looked as if he had been chewing nails. "You talked to Briarstone?" he demanded. "Yes," I said. "They claim it was paperwork. They refused to name it, but they admitted it was tied to an authenticity report and a transaction dispute." Kramer's eyes narrowed. "We can subpoena that." "You will," I said, "but the murderer already solved it with a blunt object." Kramer jerked his head toward Vale's office. "Come on. We got lab results and you'll like them." I followed him inside. The room looked even more staged in daylight, because daylight is honest enough to make neatness look suspicious. The desk was still bare wood, where the blotter had been. The watch was gone, bagged, and the emptiness where it had sat felt like a missing tooth. Kramer said, "Cause of death is confirmed. One blow to the back of the head, delivered when he likely turned away. No fight, no struggle. Whoever did it was close, and Vale didn't expect it. That fits a man who trusted the moment," I said. Kramer grunted. "And we found something else." He motioned toward a shelf in the corner, and I saw it as soon as he pointed. A faint rectangle of dust, cleaner than the surrounding area, the kind of mark left when a binder sits in place for months and is removed recently. It was the same kind of mark I had seen in other cases, the ghost of an object that mattered. "Binder was there," I said. "Yeah," Kramer replied, "and it's gone." I crouched and ran a gloved finger lightly along the shelf. The dust pattern was sharp. Removed recently, not weeks ago. No one dusts like that by accident. "Any idea what it was?" Kramer asked. "Not yet," I said. "But it could hold reports, photos, correspondence. The kind of paperwork that ends arguments without voices." Kramer's detective handed me a bag of shredded strips. "Trash," he said. "We sifted." I looked through the strips carefully. Most were meaningless slivers, but 2 had words that made my eyebrows lift. Authenticity report. Refund. I looked up at Kramer. "This is Briarstone's paperwork." Kramer's face tightened. "So Vale got the package. Or someone else got it," I said. "But those strips were in his trash." Kramer swore. "And the package is missing." "The package matters," I said. "It contained proof, either documents or photos, dangerous enough to kill for." Kramer glared. "You're telling me the murderer took the package and shredded part of it?" "Or shredded something related," I said, "and took the rest. The missing envelope, the missing blotter, the missing binder. This is a theft disguised as a tidy death." Kramer nodded once, grudging. "And the watch?" "The watch is the tool that stretches the timeline," I said. 5 minutes lets a witness remember 9:05. When it was 9 o'clock, it lets the assistant claim she left at 9:02 when she might have left at 9:07. It makes contradictions polite. Kramer's eyes narrowed. "You think Merrick planted it?" "She ordered it altered," I said. "Receipt says January 3rd. Set plus 5 minutes per request. Woman from Vale's office." Kramer's mouth tightened. "I brought her in. She's holding. She says she did it because Vale liked it." "Which we now know is false," I said. Kramer grunted. "We got statements from 2 of Vale's friends, same as yours. He hated wrong timepieces." "So Paula is assigning him a trait he didn't have," I said. Kramer nodded. "Heavy. Wolfe will love that." "He already does," I said. I returned to the brownstone with the new facts in my notebook, and the city's cold still biting my ears. Wolfe was in the office, curtains drawn, a plate of Fritz's snacks untouched on the side table, as if Wolfe were punishing it for existing. The room was warm, and the warmth felt like luxury after the street. Wolfe looked at me as I entered. "You are late." "I am accurate," I replied, "which is different." Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly, but he let it go. "Report." I gave it to him in the order he would prefer, with the objects first and the opinions last. "The package is missing," I said, "but the signature sheet remains in the courier's handheld device. The sender was Briarstone Auctions. They recently were embarrassed by Simon exposing a fake. Their representative claimed They sent only paperwork, but refused to name it. He confirmed it was tied to an authenticity report and a transaction dispute. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. As expected, continue. In Simon's office, I said, we found a faint dust rectangle on a shelf where a binder once sat. It was removed recently. In the trash, shredded strips included the words, authenticity report and refund. Kramer confirms cause of death. One blunt strike to the back of the head, delivered when Simon likely turned away. Wolfe's fingers steepled, so the killer approached with enough familiarity to be trusted for a moment. Yes, I said, and used the watch to stretch the timeline. Wolfe nodded once. The watch was the architecture, the theft was the purpose. I sat back. You were right. 5 minutes is not error, it's design. Wolfe's gaze held mine. And now the design demands a beneficiary, I said. Briarstone has motive to avoid embarrassment. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Embarrassment is not sufficient motive for murder unless it threatens money or liberty. The authenticity report and refund suggest money. The missing binder suggests something more organized. I suspect Simon Vale possessed proof of fraud or a pattern of it. I nodded, and the missing blotter means he wrote something down. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Yes, and the missing package is the key. It arrived at 9 o'clock by schedule. The courier remembered 9:05 because someone taught him to. That teaching was done with the altered watch, visible, confident, and placed like an instruction. I leaned forward. So who needed 5 minutes? Wolfe's voice was calm. The person who had to appear elsewhere at 9 o'clock, yet needed to be in Simon Vale's office long enough to take the package, remove the binder, remove the blotter, and exit without haste. I said, that sounds like someone with a second appointment or a timed presence. Wolfe nodded. Precisely. A person with an alibi that begins at 9. He reached for his beer, took a sip, and set it down. Then he looked at me as if assigning an errand were an act of mercy. Archie, Wolfe said, find who needed 5 minutes to become invisible. I stood because when Wolfe says a sentence like that, it is not a request. It is a direction, and the city outside is full of people trying to be invisible for much worse reasons than cold weather. As I reached the hall, Fritz's voice drifted in from the kitchen, calm and steady. Mr. Goodwin, if you will be out late, I can keep soup warm. I paused. Keep it warm anyway, I said. In this town, warmth always becomes evidence. Chapter 5. Time manipulation exposes design. Wolfe has a theory about winter that he has never bothered to state aloud, because he dislikes poetry unless it can be served with gravy. I have inferred it from his habits. In winter, Wolfe becomes more stubborn, more exacting, and more offended by anything that suggests the world might be allowed to drift. He likes systems. Winter is a season that breaks systems by making people hurry, cut corners, and accept approximations. That is why, when a murder arrives wrapped in minutes, he takes it personally. He was in his office when I came in that morning, and the room looked as it always does when Wolfe has decided to work. Curtains adjusted to keep out glare, chair positioned like a throne, desk cleared like a battlefield before the first shot. The orchids had already had their time upstairs. Fritz had already served breakfast with silent judgment. Wolfe had already read enough of the morning paper to be disgusted with humanity, and then fold it with care as if it deserved respect anyway. I had barely closed the door behind me when Wolfe said, "You will sit and report." "I will sit," I said, "and then I will report." Sitting first always improves the quality. Wolfe did not smile. He never does when the case is still brittle. I sat and began. We confirmed the lobby clock is accurate. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Confirmed by whom? Building management checked against the time service and the police time, I said. Kramer had it verified. Corridor clock too. Both accurate. Wolfe nodded once. So the only incorrect timepiece is the watch. Yes, I said, which means the incorrect time source is not accident. It is chosen. Wolfe leaned back slightly. A single reliable falsehood is more powerful than many weak ones. Continue. I flipped a page. We have more on Paula Merrick. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Proceed. Paula Merrick had been at the center of the story since the beginning, but until now, she had been a figure in other people's accounts, an assistant with a neat voice and an explanation ready. I had avoided pushing her too hard too early because Wolfe had taught me that when a person has rehearsed a line, you do not attack the line. You watch what happens around it. Now we had enough around it to make the line crack, I said. I questioned her again. She repeats times too smoothly. Always rounded to the minute. 8:58, 9:02, 9:10. Nothing fuzzy. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Honest memory is disorderly. Manufactured memory is tidy. Exactly, I said. She says she left at 9:02 by lobby clock, yet we pulled it logs from Simon's office system. Wolfe leaned forward a fraction. And Paula accessed Simon's email at 9:06, I said. From his office computer login, after she claims she left. Wolfe's eyes held mine. She cannot leave at 9:02 and log in at 9:06 unless she has long arms. She insists you must have done it earlier, I said. Then she corrects herself. Maybe 9 o'clock. Same move as the watch trick, sliding time to match the record. A liar who revises to fit facts, reveals his awareness of facts. I said, she also has a connection she did not mention. Her brother works at Briarstone Auctions. Wolfe went still. That is a small thing to describe, but Wolfe's stillness is not passive. It is a clamp. It means his mind has tightened around a point. She did not mention it, Wolfe said. No, I replied. I learned it from a background check Kramer's man ran, brother named Colin Merrick, junior operations at Briarstone. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Then Paula's interest in Briarstone's package is not abstract. It is familial and convenient, I said. Wolfe's voice was calm. Convenient is the odor of design. Now, Archie, we will do this properly. Tell me the sequence of Paula's statements and corrections. I told him. When she first spoke, she claimed Simon called her at 8:58. Phone records show no calls after 8:47. When confronted, she declared the records wrong. Then she shifted to face-to-face conversation. She claimed she left at 9:02. When pressed about the subway timing, she blamed speed. Now, confronted with the 9:06 email access, she tried to move the act earlier. Wolfe listened without moving, then said, she is not merely lying, she is attempting to maintain a structure. Yes, I said. And the structure is built of minutes, Wolfe said. I nodded. The 5 minutes is the mortar. Wolfe stared at his desk for a moment, then looked up. Do you understand why the watch is superior to the lobby clock as a tool for this murder? Because the lobby clock is public, I said. It can be checked, corrected, argued. The watch is personal and portable. It looks like it belongs to the victim. People trust it without questioning it. Wolfe nodded. And because it was centered and face up, it demanded attention. It made itself the first witness. I sat back. So the killer wanted one reliable false time source in the room, portable, persuasive, personal. Wolfe's eyes sharpened. Yes, one false clock. One true room. The murderer exploited the difference. I could hear Fritz in the hall, moving with his quiet competence. A tray appeared at the office door, carried by Fritz, set down without comment. Coffee for Wolfe, coffee for me, and a plate with something sweet that Fritz had prepared, because he believes work should be fed. Wolfe glanced at it, then at Fritz. Thank you, Fritz, Wolfe said, which in his language is both gratitude and an apology for being difficult. Fritz nodded and left. I poured myself coffee. Wolfe did not touch his yet. That told me his mind was still busy. Wolfe said, we must now compel Paula Merrick to act. Kramer wants to arrest her, I said. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Arrest is premature. She is not yet pinned. She may be the killer, or she may be the mechanic. She certainly is involved, but I prefer the murderer to convict himself. That's your favorite hobby, I said. Wolfe ignored it. We will set a trap. What kind, I asked, though I already suspected. Wolfe's voice was quiet. We will announce the package has been recovered and will be opened at noon. I blinked, announced publicly. Yes, Wolfe said. Noise attracts the guilty. That will stir Briarstone, I said. It will stir Paula, Wolfe replied, and it will stir her brother. I considered it. If the package is proof, whoever took it will panic at the idea it will be opened. Wolfe nodded. Precisely, the murderer came for paper, threatened the paper, and you threatened the murderer. I left to go see Paula Merrick again, because once Wolfe sets a trap, he likes the bait to be fresh. Kramer met me in the street in front of the building, his shoulders hunched against cold and irritation. You got the IT log, he said, already angry. I got it, I replied. And it says Paula accessed Simon's email at 9:06. Kramer swore. She's done. I can nail her for obstruction at least. You can, I said, but Wolfe wants something else. Kramer's eyes narrowed. What now? He wants you to announce publicly that the missing package was recovered and will be opened at noon, I said. Kramer stared. Recovered? We don't have it. I know, I said. Kramer's face turned a shade darker. You and Wolfe and your stunts. It's not a stunt, I said. It's pressure. The murderer built a story out of minutes. Now we build one out of expectation. Kramer grunted. You want a press statement. Not a parade, I said. A controlled leak. Enough that it reaches the right ears. The guilty ears. Kramer hesitated, then said, All right, but if this blows back, I'm blaming Wolfe. Wolfe is used to being blamed, I said. Kramer stomped away to make his calls. I went upstairs to speak to Paula in the little conference room the police had claimed as their own. She was there, sitting upright, hands folded, face composed. The same posture she had used when she tried to sell me a habit that belonged to someone else. She looked at me with a controlled expression. Mr. Goodwin, Paula, I said, using her first name because it makes people feel either closer or threatened. We have a problem. She kept her gaze steady. A man is dead. That is the problem. That's one, I said. Another is your relationship with time. Her lips tightened. I told you what I know. You told me what you planned. I corrected. Her cheeks flushed faintly. You are insulting. I am precise, I said. You should admire that. She did not. I pulled my notebook and placed it on the table, open, as if I were offering her a chance to read her own performance. You claim Simon called you at 8:58, I said. Phone records show he made no calls after 8:47. She stiffened. Records can be wrong. Then you claim you spoke to him face to face, I said. You claim you left at 9:02. Yet it logs show Simon's email was accessed at 9:06 by his office computer login. Her eyes widened slightly and then narrowed. That must be wrong. Not wrong, I said. Stamped. Logged, mechanical. She shook her head. I must have checked earlier. Maybe 9. There it was. The slide, the correction, the tidy revision to fit a fact. I leaned back. You do that reflexively. You revise. You adjust. You trim your story like a hedge. Her voice sharpened. I am trying to remember correctly. No, I said. You are trying to be correct. That's different. Honest memory is messy. It does not come rounded and polished. She stared at me. You think because I'm organized, I'm guilty. I think because you are organized, you are dangerous, I replied. Guilty is still being decided. She swallowed, and her gaze flicked away for half a second, then back. What do you want from me? I want the truth, I said. But let's start simpler. Why did you have Simon's watch altered on January 3rd? Her eyes widened. What? The jeweler's receipt, I said. Battery, replacement. Note says set, plus 5 minutes per request. Jeweler says a woman from Simon's office brought it. Paula's mouth tightened. Simon asked me to take it. Simon hated incorrect timepieces, I said. 2 of his friends say he corrected clocks obsessively. Her eyes hardened. They don't know everything, perhaps, I said. But you don't mention your brother either. The color drained slightly from her face. "What brother?" "Colin," I said. "Works at Briarstone Auctions. You did not mention that connection when we discussed the missing package." Her hands tightened together. "That has nothing to do with this." "It has everything to do with motive," I said. Her voice went stiff. "My brother works there. So what?" "So Briarstone sent the registered package that went missing," I said. "And you are tied to Briarstone by family. That means you have reason to protect them, or reason to protect yourself from them." Her eyes flashed. "Briarstone is not involved." "Then why do you look like you want to strangle the word?" I asked. She stood abruptly. "This is harassment." I stayed seated. "Sit down, Paula." She hesitated. The hesitation was the only honest thing she had given me all morning. Then she sat again. "Listen," I said, softer. "You are not built for murder. You are built for management. You manage schedules, messages, narratives. That is why the watch is altered. That is why times are rounded. That is why you want to control what people believe." Her lips trembled slightly, then steadied. "You don't know me." "I know your work," I said. "And your work is showing." She stared at me, and for a moment I saw fear beneath the competence. Fear does not always mean guilt. Sometimes it means pressure. Wolfe had said the murderer. Benefits may not be the person who moved the hands. Paula might have moved the hands. I stood. "Kramer will be making an announcement. The missing package is being treated as important evidence now." Her eyes widened. "What announcement?" "That it has been recovered," I said, watching her. Her breath caught, and she tried to hide it. That was enough. I left her there and went down the hall, where Kramer was talking to one of his men. He saw me and jerked his head toward a corner. "Well?" he demanded. "She crack." "She flinched," I said. "Which is better? Crack means she falls apart. Flinch means she plans." Kramer scowled. "Your boss wants the noon opening." "Yes," I said. "Do it," Kramer muttered, then barked instructions to his detective. They would feed it through the channels they knew would reach the right ears. Not a press conference, just a statement that would travel through office gossip, business networks, and the invisible wiring that connects anxious people. While they did that, I made another call of my own. I called Briarstone and asked for Colin Merrick. The receptionist said he was unavailable. I said I would call back in 10 minutes. Then I called again in 5 on the second call. Colin Merrick answered, irritated. His voice sounded younger than I expected, but with the confident edge of someone who believes the world will step aside because he is busy. "This is Colin," he said. "Colin," I said. "This is Archie Goodwin, Nero Wolfe's office." There was a pause. "Nero Wolfe, why are you calling me?" "Because your sister did not mention you when she explained why a Briarstone package went missing," I said. His voice sharpened. "My sister is not involved with Briarstone business. Your sister's boss is dead," I said. "His missing registered package came from Briarstone, and your sister arranged to have his watch set 5 minutes fast days before he died." Colin's breath caught. It was small, but audible. "That's insane." "Insane is a word people use when they have no better defense," I said. "Where were you last night between 8:30 and 9:30? He barked a laugh. "At home. Why would I be anywhere?" "Because someone needed 5 minutes to become invisible," I said. "And invisible people often have help." His voice tightened. "I am not talking to you." "You already are," I said, "and you will again when the police knock." He hung up. That was fine. Hanging up is a form of answer when a man has nothing else to offer. I returned to the brownstone before noon because Wolfe likes his traps close enough that he can smell them. The office was quiet. Wolfe sat in his chair, hands folded, expression neutral, but his eyes were alert in the way they get when he expects the world to obey a plan. Fritz came in with a tray, set down coffee, and left. The domestic order of the house continued, as if murder were a distant rumor, and that was the secret strength of Wolfe's brownstone. It made people feel they should behave, which is why it makes them crack when they cannot. Wolfe said, You have spoken with Paula Merrick. Yes, I said. She flinched hard at the idea the missing package was recovered. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Describe. She asked what announcement, I said. Her breath caught. She tried to hide it. She wanted details. Wolfe nodded. Excellent, and her brother. I called him, I said. He hung up fast, after pretending outrage. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Pretended outrage is often fear dressed as dignity. I sat. Kramer is pushing the noon story through. It should reach them. Wolfe nodded once, then said, Now we wait. I stared at him. We do not wait. We never wait. Wolfe's eyes remained steady. We allow the guilty to move. That is not waiting, that is observing. The phone rang at 11:47. I answered. It was Kramer, voice clipped. It's out, he said. People already talking. Brierstone called my office twice, asking what we mean by recovered. Wolfe held out a hand. I gave him the receiver. Inspector, Wolfe said, voice calm. Who called? Kramer's voice came through faintly. Some suit from Brierstone, won't give his name. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. And Paula Merrick, Kramer snorted. She just asked my detective whether the package will be opened in the building or moved, asked it like it matters. Wolfe's lips pressed together. It does matter to her. He handed the receiver back to me. I heard Kramer's last line before he hung up. Noon, if your boss is wrong, I'm billing him. I set the phone down. Wolfe had not moved. He was still, attentive, as if he could hear the city's nervousness through the walls. He said, The time manipulation has exposed the design. Now the design will expose the designer. I frowned. You think someone will act before noon? Yes, Wolfe said. Because if the package is opened at noon, the contents become permanent in minds that cannot be controlled. The murderer has relied on controlling time. Now we are controlling it. I leaned forward. What do you want me to do? Wolfe's eyes narrowed. You will be at Simon Vale's office building at 11:55. You will watch the lobby. You will watch the elevators. You will watch the corridors. Most importantly, you will watch who looks at a clock. That's poetic, I said. They consult time as if it were a partner. I stood, coat already feeling heavy in my hands. You will stay here. Wolfe's eyes flashed. Naturally. And if the guilty do nothing, I said. Wolfe's voice was calm. Then we will gather them here and force them to speak. But I prefer movement. Movement is honest. I left the brownstone with the city's cold waiting to bite again, and with the thought that in this case, time was not merely a record. It was the weapon, the alibi, and now, if Wolfe was right, the bait at noon, someone would either let the package be opened or try to stop it. And in New York, stopping paper often costs more than killing for it. Chapter 6. The 5-minute panic. If you ever want to see how much a man values paper, tell him you are about to read it aloud. At 11:55. I was in the lobby of Simon Vale's building, stamped with cold, and pretending not to look like a man waiting for trouble. The lobby clock hung behind the desk, smug and accurate, while the city outside rushed by in a grey blur. The doorman had already decided I was not a tenant, not a delivery, and therefore a nuisance. He watched me the way a cat watches a dog that has wandered into the wrong yard. I did not mind. Being watched is sometimes useful. It establishes that you were there, and in this case the whole murder was built on who was there. When and how confidently. At 11:58 a man in a messenger jacket came through the door, with a padded envelope under his arm, moving fast but not running. He had that eager look of a man who believes being urgent makes him important. He went to the desk, spoke quickly, and the doorman pointed toward the elevators. The messenger started toward them, then paused as if unsure which direction was correct, then headed for the side corridor that led to the building's management offices. That was the first honest thing I had seen all morning. I followed at a distance, not too close. The corridor was quiet. A maintenance man pushed a cart and gave me a glance. The messenger turned into the management office area and spoke again. Faster now. A door opened. I heard a sharp voice. Then I heard the name. Evidence, the voice said. You can't go in there. The messenger tried anyway, pushing toward an inner door that had no sign, no friendly label, just a plain lock, and the kind of quiet that comes with police presence. Two uniformed men appeared from nowhere, which is what uniforms do when they are doing their job correctly. They stopped him cold. The messenger protested, waving the envelope. One of the uniforms took it, opened it, and read. His expression shifted from boredom to interest. That is when my phone rang. Kramer. You at the building, he barked. I'm in it, I said, and something is happening. You seeing a messenger, he snapped. Yes, I said. He just tried to reach your evidence office. Kramer swore. We got a break, in attempt at the evidence room outer office too. 10 minutes ago someone tried the door, worked the lock, bold as brass. Didn't get in, we got marks. So the panic started, I said. It started, Kramer agreed. And your boss is going to love it. He always does, I said. What's in the envelope? A withdrawal letter, Kramer said, trying to stop the noon opening signed in Paula Merrick's name. I felt my eyebrows rise. She didn't write it. She says she didn't. Kramer growled, and it sure looks like somebody wanted it to look like she did. You were right about scapegoats. Tell me you held the messenger, I said. He's held, Kramer said. He says he was paid to deliver it. No questions, usual song. Where was it going? I asked. Outer office of our evidence room. Like he knew exactly. Kramer replied. He knew the route. That's not random. Not random, I said. Kramer's voice tightened. And here's the kicker. We traced the jeweler request. Remember that receipt you got? We leaned on the shop for camera footage. And, I said. And the guy on camera asking for +5 minutes is not Paula, Kramer said, voice thick with satisfaction. It's a man, we ran it through. It's Gordon Hale, Briarstone manager. That hit like a clean blow. Gordon Hale. The name had been hovering since Wolfe prodded Briarstone, but now it had weight. A man who asks to set a victim's watch fast days before the murder is not a bystander. He is a mechanic of deception. Send me the clip, I said. You'll get it, Kramer snapped. Where are you? In the lobby corridor, I said, and I think Paula is going to move. Kramer snorted. You going to tail her? I already planned to, I said, and hung up. I stepped back into the lobby. The messenger was being guided toward the front desk by a uniform, his shoulders hunched, his face confused and resentful. People resent being caught when they believe they were just running an errand. They resent it even more when they realize they have become part of a murder story. I did not linger. The important part was not the messenger. The important part was the panic, and panic always drags the guilty into motion. I went outside and waited. The sidewalk was busy enough that I could stand without looking like I was waiting. In New York, standing still is suspicious, but only if you look guilty. I made my face neutral, which is something you can learn if you have spent years watching Wolfe. Pretend he is not interested while his mind is chewing. At 12:14, Paula Merrick emerged from the building. She was moving fast, coat buttoned, hair tucked tight, face set. She did not look like a grieving assistant. She looked like a woman in the middle of a schedule that had just been disrupted. I followed her. She walked with purpose, cutting across a side street, heading toward a cafe 2 blocks away. She did not check behind her, which meant she either felt safe or was too panicked to be cautious. Either condition could be useful. She entered the cafe, went to a back table, and sat without ordering. That told me she was meeting someone, not seeking comfort. Coffee is comfort. Meetings are hunger. I took a seat near the front with a view of the back, ordered coffee to give myself legitimacy, and waited. At 12:21, Gordon Hale walked in. I recognized him from Kramer's description and from the type, a man in a good coat, face composed, eyes alert. He moved like a person accustomed to rooms that expect him. He scanned once, spotted Paula, and went to her table. I watched his hands first because Wolfe had told me to. Gordon's hands had scraped knuckles, small abrasions, the kind you get when you handle rough metal or work a stubborn lock. Not winter chapping, not paper cuts, practical damage. He sat, leaned in, spoke low. Paula's posture tightened. She looked like a woman being scolded, not a woman sharing grief. I sipped coffee and watched. Gordon's hands moved once toward his pocket, then stopped. A nervous gesture. He was calm, but not completely. Calm men in panic reveal themselves in their hands. Wolfe would have enjoyed that. After a few minutes, Paula shook her head sharply. Gordon's jaw tightened. He spoke again, more emphatic. Paula's eyes darted toward the window, toward the street. For a moment, I thought she might bolt. Then she nodded once, reluctantly. Gordon's shoulders eased a fraction. They were not meeting as colleagues. They were meeting as a manager and a tool, or a manager and a scapegoat. Wolfe had said Paula was being used as access and scapegoat. Watching her in that cafe, I believed him. I waited until Gordon stood and left. Paula remained seated, staring at her hands, then finally rose and hurried out the other door. I followed Gordon. He walked toward Briarstone's building with the steady pace of a man who believes his plans can still be repaired if he moves quickly. That is always the mistake. Men, like Wolfe, do not miss mistakes. They collect them. On the way, I called Wolfe from the street. "Wolfe," I said, "we have movement." Wolfe replied. His voice was calm, and I pictured him in his chair with the same stillness that makes people talk too much. "Break in attempt at evidence room outer office," I said. Not successful, but bold. Then a messenger tried to deliver a withdrawal letter to stop the noon opening. Letter signed in Paula Merrick's name. She denies writing it. Wolfe said, as expected. And Kramer traced the jeweler request, I continued. The person on camera asking for +5 minutes is Gordon Hale, Briarstone manager. There was a pause, brief but heavy. "Excellent," Wolfe said finally. "Continue." I tailed Paula, I said. She met Gordon Hale in a cafe, low voices tense. His hands have scraped knuckles, like he handled rough metal. File cabinet lock, forced drawer, something like that. She looked cornered. Wolfe's voice hardened slightly. "So Paula is indeed being used." "Yes," I said. Gordon left and headed toward Briarstone. "I'm tailing," Wolfe said. "Do not lose him. But do not engage him. He will attempt to edit reality again." "That is his hobby," I said. Wolfe's tone was dry. "Number his necessity." He paused. "Archie, 5 minutes is not merely convenience. It is a pocket, a safe pocket. Gordon Hale purchased that pocket by altering the watch." I said. "He didn't buy time. He bought an alibi." Wolfe's voice held. "Exactly. He did not look back. He did not hurry. That was a choice. Hurrying would make him look guilty. Calm would make him look competent. He had chosen calm as his defense, and he used it the way other men use money. When he reached Briarstone's building, he did not enter the main lobby. He turned to a side entrance, glanced at the door lock, and went in with a keycard. I could not follow him without being seen, so I stayed outside, pretending to be fascinated by a storefront display and silently cursing winter. I called Kramer again, and he answered with a bark. "He's at Briarstone," I said. "Side entrance." Kramer swore. "We got warrants moving. Don't do anything stupid." "That's for you," I said, and hung up. A few minutes later, Gordon emerged again, carrying nothing visible, but with his coat buttoned higher and his shoulders tighter. He had been inside long enough to retrieve something small, a file, a flash drive, a phone, something he believed would save him when his fake time pocket collapsed. He walked faster now, and that told me the calm was breaking. I stayed with him until I saw a police car roll up at the corner, slow and quiet. Kramer's men were closing in, not like a raid, but like a net. Gordon looked up, saw them, and hesitated for the first time. That hesitation was the real Gordon Hale. The rest had been performance. He turned abruptly, heading back toward the side door. Too late. A detective stepped in front of him, badge out. Gordon stopped. Hands held out slightly, palms up, the universal gesture of a man pretending he is cooperative while his mind searches for exits. I did not step in. Wolfe had warned me, do not engage, observe. Let the guilty convict himself. I went back to the brownstone. Wolfe was waiting in his office, as if he had never moved in his life and had simply summoned the world to bring him reports. That is his genius and his luxury. He cannot chase a man down a street, but he can chase a pattern across a city. I told him everything again, slower with the details Wolfe loves. The scraped hands, the messenger's envelope, the false signature. Wolfe listened, then said, "You see the design now." "Yes," I said. The watch trick created a safe pocket. The evidence room attempt and the withdrawal letter prove panic, and Gordon is the mechanic. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Gordon Hale pushed the watch plan. 5 minutes fast, so that when witnesses speak, their words slide away from his presence. He needed a pocket of time in which he could be in Simon Vale's office, yet be denied. I nodded, and he used Paula as access. "And scapegoat," Wolfe added. "Yes," I agreed. Wolfe leaned back slightly, fingers steepled. "Now we will complete this. We must determine what was in the missing package and binder, and how Gordon intended to benefit. Then we will assemble them in this room and force the story to stand without alteration." I exhaled. "You're going to do the office gathering?" Wolfe's eyes flashed. Naturally. Fritz appeared at the door with a tray, as if murder discussions required nourishment. Wolfe glanced at the tray, and then at me. "Archie," Wolfe said almost mildly, "you have done adequately." "That's the closest thing you have to applause," I said. Wolfe ignored that. "Now, we will see whether Gordon Hale's 5 minutes were worth the price he paid." Outside, the city kept ticking, accurate and indifferent. Inside Wolfe's office, time had become a trap, and the man who tried to counterfeit it was now caught in the gears. Chapter 7. Wolfe breaks the alibi. Wolfe does not enjoy crowds, but he enjoys endings. He will tolerate one if it guarantees the other. By late afternoon, the office was arranged the way it always is when Wolfe intends to strip a lie down to its bones. Chairs placed with intention, the desk cleared except for items he has chosen, the lamps adjusted to make faces look honest, whether they deserve it or not. Fritz had done his part. He always does. The brownstone smelled faintly of roast and warm bread, which is unfair when people are about to be accused of murder. If the world were properly constructed, a murderer should have to sit in a room that smells of damp wool and stale coffee. Wolfe disagrees. He believes comfort is a tool. He makes people comfortable so they forget to guard themselves. I was at my desk when the bell rang, and I went to answer it. Because Wolfe was behind his desk, and Kramer was already glowering in the red leather chair, as if it had personally insulted him. The first arrival was Paula Merrick. She came in as if she had told herself a dozen times that she would be composed. Her coat was buttoned neatly, her hair pulled back, her face pale but controlled. She glanced once at me, then at Wolfe, and then at Kramer, and you could see her calculation, police, genius, assistant, no friendly faces. "Miss Merrick," Wolfe said, not rising. "Sit." She sat, her hands folded in her lap as if she had rehearsed that too. The second arrival was Gordon Hale. He entered with the practiced poise of a man who has spent his life carrying authority like a document. He wore a fine coat, and his jaw was set the way a man sets it when he believes he is being wronged. His hands, however, betrayed him. The scraped knuckles were still there, the skin rough in places, as if he had done quick work with metal and then washed too thoroughly. He nodded at Wolfe, glanced at Kramer, and gave me a brief look that tried to measure my importance. Wolfe did not return his greeting. Wolfe never wastes politeness on a man he intends to convict. The third arrival was a Briarstone executive, a woman named Celeste Harrow, who moved like someone accustomed to rooms opening for her. She was middle-aged, elegant, and her eyes had the hard shine of someone whose job is to keep a business clean, even when the world is dirty. She looked at Gordon Hale as if he were a problem she had not planned for. She looked at Paula Merrick as if she were a rumor that had become inconveniently real. Kramer rose halfway, then sank back into his chair, as if standing was effort he could not justify. "All right," he grunted. "We hear." Wolfe's gaze moved across them with the calm power of a man counting pieces on a board. His voice was even. "Mr. Hale, Miss Merrick, Miss Harrow, Inspector Kramer, Archie. We will not waste time." I thought that was funny given the case, but I kept it to myself. Wolfe lifted a folder from his desk and placed it down with deliberation. "This case is constructed of minutes. Mr. Hale attempted to build an alibi by altering the perception of time. He nearly succeeded. He failed because time, unlike human memory, can be verified." Gordon Hale's lips tightened. "I do not know what you are talking about." Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "You will." He turned slightly toward me. "Archie, begin with the anchor points." I had the notes ready, and I read them out in a clear voice, the way you read a will when you want the heirs to listen. "Courier delivery scheduled for 9 p.m., I said. "Elevator log shows a trip to Simon Vale's floor at 8:54. "Phone records show Simon Vale made no calls after 8:47. "It logs show Simon Vale's email accessed at 9:06 from his office computer. Neighboring tenant heard a heavy door close at about 9:12, checked against the corridor clock, which has been confirmed accurate." Paula Merrick's eyes flicked as I spoke, counting each time, measuring where it landed. Gordon Hale sat still, but his jaw worked slightly at 9:06. Wolfe nodded once. "Those are the true timestamps. Now we add the false one." He reached for an evidence envelope and removed a wristwatch in a clear bag. The watch face was visible, and even now the hands looked smug. "This watch," Wolfe said, "was set 5 minutes fast and placed face up on Simon Vale's desk, centered, so it would be noticed. It was not a habit. It was a device." Gordon Hale's eyes narrowed. "That watch belonged to Simon." Wolfe's voice remained calm. "Indeed, but its incorrect setting did not belong to him." Wolfe took another paper and held it up. A jeweler's receipt, dated January 3rd. Battery replacement. Notation, set plus 5 minutes per request. Paula Merrick's breath caught. She glanced at Gordon, then looked down quickly. Wolfe's gaze sharpened. "Miss Merrick, you delivered that watch to the jeweler." Paula's voice was thin. "Simon asked me to." Wolfe's eyes hardened. "Number he did not. Simon Vale despised incorrect timepieces. That fact has been confirmed by multiple associates. Therefore, the request for an incorrect setting came from another source." He nodded toward Kramer. Kramer reached into his coat and produced a photograph, then tossed it onto Wolfe's desk with the roughness of a man who dislikes paper. Wolfe lifted it and turned it so they could see. A grainy still from a jeweler's camera showed Gordon Hale at the counter, leaning slightly, hand on the glass, face turned enough to be recognized. Wolfe said, "This is Mr. Gordon Hale, requesting the watch be set 5 minutes fast." Paula Merrick made a small sound, half gasp, half surrender. Celeste Harrow's face tightened. "Mr. Hale." Gordon's voice rose slightly. "That proves nothing. I may have been there for a different reason." Wolfe's gaze stayed steady. "Then explain why you were there at all." Gordon's mouth tightened. "We had business with Mr. Vale," Wolfe nodded. "Briarstone Auctions had business with Mr. Vale because he embarrassed you by exposing a fake. You sent him a registered package. That package is now missing." Celeste Harrow straightened. "The contents were not criminal." Wolfe looked at her. "Then your representatives would have named them when asked." "They did not." She held Wolfe's gaze without blinking, which is the mark of a woman who does not fear men, only consequences. Wolfe returned his attention to Gordon. The purpose of the watch was to shift witness perception. If a courier arrives at 9 o'clock, but checks his watch after glancing at the fast watch in the room, he reports 9:05. That 5 minutes does not change his honesty. It changes his anchoring. The result is the same. The record becomes blurred. Gordon's expression tightened, but he stayed silent. Wolfe continued, voice calm, merciless. "If the assistant claims she left at 9:02 by the lobby clock, but in fact remains long enough to access the email system at 9:06, she must revise. She must slide. This is what she did." Paula Merrick's hands clenched in her lap. Wolfe looked at her. Miss Merrick, did Mr. Hale instruct you to claim Simon Vale always ran his watch fast? Paula hesitated, and that hesitation was her last defense. It lasted about 2 seconds, which is long enough to be noticed and too short to be effective. Yes, she said finally. Her voice cracked on the word. He told me. He said Simon did it as a habit. He said I should repeat it if anyone asked. He said it would keep things simple. Wolfe nodded once. Simple is the liar's favorite adjective. Gordon Hale leaned forward slightly, anger sharpening his voice. I told her that because it was plausible, I did not kill anyone. I was trying to protect the auction house from scandal. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Then why stage time instead of truth? Gordon's face flushed. Because the truth would damage Briarstone, Mr. Vale was threatening us. Celeste Harrow's voice cut in. Cold, Gordon. Wolfe ignored her. Threatening you with what? Gordon's jaw worked. With public humiliation, with accusations. Wolfe's voice remained steady. With proof. He nodded to me. I opened the folder of shredded strips, and Wolfe gestured at the words visible on the reconstructed sheet. Authenticity report, Wolfe said. Refund. Celeste Harrow's expression tightened in a way that told me she recognized the words as both business and disaster. Wolfe continued. The missing package and the missing binder were the true target. Simon Vale was killed to obtain them. Gordon Hale shook his head. You have no evidence I was in his office. Kramer snorted. You want evidence. He pulled out a printed report and slapped it down. Kecard log. Your keycard accessed Vale's building at 8:53. Gordon's face went still. Kramer's voice was rough with satisfaction. Matches the elevator log at 8:54. You got in, took the elevator, and you're in that suite before 9. Gordon's eyes flicked toward Celeste Harrow, and for an instant he looked like a man remembering which side he belongs to. Wolfe's voice was quiet. Mr. Hale, you see the problem. You attempted to create a pocket of time in which your presence could be denied. You did not create it to deceive me. You created it to deceive witnesses and records. It nearly worked. Gordon swallowed. I did not kill him. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. Then who did? Gordon's mouth tightened. I do not know. Wolfe leaned forward slightly. His voice still calm but carrying weight. You filed the watch. You arranged the perception shift. You arranged the false habit. You used Miss Merrick as a mouthpiece. You attempted to stop the Noon opening with a letter signed in her name. You attempted to access evidence records. You have scraped hands consistent with forced draws and locks. You are here because time which you tried to manipulate has pinned you. Paula Merrick's voice came out small. He told me it was just insurance. He said if there was confusion, no one would accuse me. He said Simon would calm down if we handled it quietly. Wolfe's gaze went to her. Did you see Mr. Hale in Simon Vale's office last night? Paula hesitated, then nodded once. Yes, Gordon snapped. Paula. She flinched but continued, as if she had finally realized that neat lies do not protect you when they collapse. He came in before 9. He said he needed to speak to Simon about the package. Simon was angry. He told Gordon to leave. Gordon said he needed to check something on Simon's computer. Wolfe's eyes narrowed. And then Paula's voice was brittle. I left. I thought it was just business. Your email access at 9:06 indicates you did not leave when you claim, Wolfe said. Paula swallowed. I was still there. I was in the outer office. I heard a thud. Then Gordon came out. He told me Simon slipped. He told me not to touch anything. He told me to go home and remember that Simon always ran 5 minutes fast. Gordon's face had lost its color. Celeste Harrow sat like stone, eyes fixed on him with a look that was not sorrow and not surprise, but calculation, Wolfe said. Inspector. Kramer rose slow, like a man enjoying the moment. All right, Hale. On your feet. Gordon Hale's voice rose in protest. This is insane. I did not intend this. I was protecting Briarstone. Wolfe's voice cut through, quiet and brutal. Protection does not require counterfeit minutes. Protection requires truth. You staged time because truth would not obey you. Kramer moved in, and his detective stepped forward. Gordon stood reluctantly, hands lifting, palms out, still trying to look reasonable. Reasonable men do not alter a dead man's watch. As the cuffs clicked, Fritz appeared at the office door, silent as ever, and for a moment the domestic order of the brownstone made the arrest look even uglier. Murder always looks worse in a civilized room. Celeste Harrow stood as well, chin high. "Mr. Wolfe," she said, voice controlled. "Briarstone will cooperate." Wolfe looked at her. "You should have done so earlier." Wolfe regarded her with a cool expression that held no comfort. "You will speak to Inspector Kramer," Wolfe said. "Fully, your neatness has cost you dearly." She nodded, tears finally breaking free. When they were gone, Kramer lingered a moment, then looked at Wolfe. "You were right," Kramer said grudgingly. "The watch wasn't for you." Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly. "Of course not. I am not a witness. I am an analyst." Kramer grunted and headed out. I stayed because I liked watching the room settle after Wolfe finished cutting. Wolfe leaned back in his chair, and for the first time all day he looked almost satisfied. He said, "You see, Archie, the murderer believed he could buy an alibi with 5 minutes." "And he nearly did," I said. Wolfe's mouth tightened. Nearly is the refuge of the incompetent. I looked at the empty chair where Gordon Hale had sat and thought about how confidently he had carried those minutes, like a man carrying a key. Outside, New York kept time with indifferent accuracy. Inside Wolfe's office, time had just been restored to its proper function, not a tool for liars, but a chain that binds them. Chapter 8. The design hidden in 5 minutes. If you have never watched a man's confidence drain out of him, in a civilized room, you may believe justice is dramatic. It is not. It is mechanical. Wolfe likes it that way. Drama is for amateurs and juries. Wolfe prefers gears and levers because gears do not care about excuses. After Kramer's men took Gordon Hale out, there was a brief interval in which the brownstone returned to itself. Fritz cleared cups. The fire in the grate made its soft sound. The street outside kept murmuring with traffic and winter impatience. Wolfe sat in his chair as if nothing had happened beyond an interesting interruption to his schedule. But a confession does not wait politely once the cuffs click. Kramer called within the hour, and I could tell by his voice that the confession had the dull thud of truth rather than the bright clatter of bravado. "He's talking," Kramer growled into the phone. Wolfe held out a hand without looking up. I gave him the receiver. "Yes, Inspector," Wolfe said, tone mild. Kramer's voice came through sharper. "Hale admits it. The package was an authenticity report. Said Briarstone sold a forged piece. Big money, refund large enough to bleed them. He says Vale was going to make it public, ruin reputations, lawsuits, the whole mess." Wolfe's eyes narrowed slightly, not with surprise, but with satisfaction. "Of course," Kramer continued. "Hale says he went in early with his keycard, waited in Vale's office. Courier comes in at 9. Hale confronts him. Vale refuses to negotiate. Hale hits him. One strike, takes the package and whatever binder Vale had. Stages the scene to look like quiet closure. Tried to use the watch and Merrick's story to push times around." Wolfe's voice stayed calm. "And Paula Merrick," Kramer snorted. "She's admitting her part now that Hale's sunk. She accessed his email after, tried to clean up correspondence, repeated that habit nonsense because Hale told her it would protect her job. She's looking at obstruction and evidence tampering." Wolfe said, "Adequate. Bring the written confession to my office when it is completed." Kramer barked a laugh. "You think I'm bringing evidence to your house now?" Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "Inspector, you called me for assistance. You have received it. Do as you wish," Kramer grunted. "You'll get a copy. That's enough." Wolfe handed the receiver back to me. I heard Kramer's final remark before I hung up. "You and your boss and 5 minutes," he said. "It's always something." When the line went dead, Wolfe looked at me. "Now," he said, "you will write it correctly." "That's my specialty," I told him. Wolfe ignored it. "As usual, state the case." So I did. Out loud first. The way Wolfe likes, because saying it forces the mind to respect sequence. Gordon Hale, I began. Briarstone manager. Briarstone sent Simon Vale a registered package. It contained an authenticity report, proving Briarstone sold a forged item and owed a large refund. Vale intended to expose it publicly, which would ruin reputations and trigger lawsuits. Hale entered Vale's building at 8:53, elevator to the floor at 8:54. He was in Vale's office before the courier arrived. The courier's delivery was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Hale confronted Vale when the package arrived. Vale refused to negotiate. Hale struck him once, to the back of the head, when Vale turned away. Then Hale took the package and removed a binder and blotter impressions, staged the office as closed, and attempted to use a false time source to blur witness perception. Wolfe nodded once. "And the false time source?" "The watch," I said. "Set 5 minutes fast, requested at the jeweler on January 3rd. Not by Simon, by Gordon Hale. Placed face up and centered on the desk to become the first noticed object. It shifted the courier's memory from 9 o'clock to 9:05 and provided a buffer so Gordon's presence could be denied inside the blur." Wolfe's eyes held mine. 5 minutes as a pocket. "Yes," I said. "A pocket where his movement would not align with remembered times." Wolfe nodded again. "Continue, Paula Merrick," I said. "Helped after the fact. She accessed Simon's email at 9:06, attempted to delete or modify correspondence, and repeated the story that Simon always ran fast because Hale told her to. She believed she was saving her job and saving Briarstone. She became both access and scapegoat. Hale attempted to stop the opening of the missing package with a withdrawal letter signed in her name and tried to tamper with evidence records. When the trap was sprung, her neat lies collapsed. Wolfe's mouth tightened, which is his version of approval. I leaned back. "That's it." Wolfe's gaze drifted for a moment to the door, then to the window where late winter light lay thin on the glass. "Not quite," he said. I frowned. "What's missing?" Wolfe's eyes narrowed. "The conclusion, not the confession, the meaning." I sighed. "Wolfe always wants the moral, though he pretends he does not. You want your line." "I want the truth," Wolfe corrected. "All right," I said. "Coincidence is sloppy. This wasn't 5 minutes was enough to hide a man because everyone agreed, unconsciously, to be careless with time. They trusted a watch as if it were a fact, not a tool. Hale exploited that trust." Wolfe's lips pressed together, and then he spoke, voice quiet and final. "Coincidence is sloppy," Wolfe said. This was precise. 5 minutes is enough to hide a man if everyone agrees to be careless. He paused, "And most people do." That was Wolfe, and it was also New York. Fritz came in with a tray and set it down, because Fritz believes conclusions deserve nourishment. Wolfe glanced at the tray, then at me. "You may eat," Wolfe said, as if granting permission were part of his job. I took a bite, because it was good, and because the case had taken most of the day, and because January makes you hungry in ways you don't talk about. After a moment, I said, "So time is a weapon." Wolfe did not look at me. "Time is nothing," he said. "People make it a weapon by trusting it blindly." I chewed and watched the fire and listened to the quiet of the brownstone, which always returns when Wolfe is done, as if the house itself sighs with relief. Later, when I stepped out onto West 35th Street, the cold hit me like a reminder. Traffic hissed. A bus sighed at the corner. People moved fast, heads down, each of them carrying their own private schedules and believing the clocks were their allies. I walked toward the corner and thought about Simon Vale's watch, sitting in an evidence bag somewhere, still ticking, still 5 minutes wrong, still confident. It struck me that time is a weapon for one simple reason. People treat it like a fact instead of a story. And stories, as Wolfe would say, can be counterfeited.